Wolves, bandits, and bears, oh my. Can I survive the dangers of this supposedly peaceful valley while trying to build a new town and keep my people from starving to death? Well, I guess we're gonna see because I'm playing 100 Days in Medieval Dynasty. I followed this path and wandered into town on the first day with nothing but a few sticks and flowers I'd picked up along the way. Gostovia. I was looking for my last living relative, my Uncle Lorden, but in his place as Castellan, I found this guy named Unigost instead. And, well, it turns out my uncle is dead. He suggested I go find myself a place and build a home, then to come back and get some food at the tavern. I wandered off up the hill after that and ran into this farmer named Alwyn. Alwyn seemed like a nice guy, but he was having trouble with the neighbor's kid, Dalebert. He suggested maybe the kid could use a stick to play swords. I've got some sticks, so I found Dalebert and gave him one. Good luck, Gostovia. Dalebert's got a stick now. I explored a bit more around town after that. Well, hello. You guys are so cute. Ooh, stone. There's ants. Ooh, more stones. Then I used some stones to make myself an axe and headed off to find a nice place to build my house. Picked a few more flowers along the way. John's wort. Tasty. Dandelion daisy. Dandelion daisy. I was starting to get a bit thirsty, so I stopped by this river after that, where I found this lost shipment of hop. It wasn't much, but it was free, and I'll take it. Eventually, I settled for a spot off this path by the water, but first I'll have to clear it out. Timber! Chopping down trees in this game is really satisfying. Chop, 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 and down they fall. I used the logs from them to craft myself a hammer and a shovel, then dug this stump up out of my way before placing down my house. I was a bit confused at first because all I could see was an empty plot, but when I got out my hammer, this blue frame appeared in its spot. So as the sun set, I finished out day one working on my new home. I need more logs. Log. Ooh, more logs. Hammer. I ended up working late into the night to finish off the walls, but to put on a roof, I'm gonna need straw. So with the night making me a bit nervous, I decided to build a campfire and sleep under the stars. As I slept, I dreamt the craziest dream, though. I was in a class with Professor Death Knight, a new champion from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. A great game with an awesome collection of over 700 unique champions, incredible graphics, and an intense combination of PvE and PvP content.
Hello, students, it's me, your friendly neighborhood Death Knight, putting on my professor's cap with a lesson about Live Arena. What's Live Arena, you ask? Why, it's a new PvP mode where you can fight against other players in real time. Does that sound terrifying? Of course. But some of the best things in life are scary as heck, like Zargala, or going to the dentist.
Definitely sounds better than the dentist.
Oh! And there's a draft feature where you can pick and ban champions to fight for you. I love teamwork. And when you'll win, you'll get live arena crests, which you can spend at the Great Hall to unlock special area bonuses. Or so I hear, because I'm too afraid to find out. But Mr. Nibble says there's tons of special rewards.
Are they shiny?
I think so. Armed with this information, I'm sure you'll get an A+. If that's how we graded Live Arena, which we don't. All right, any questions?
What's your strategy for the Live Arena, Professor Deathman, sir?
Well, everyone thinks I'll go in fighting, but nobody expects my charm. My best strength is the gift of gab. So when they try to attack, I'll just be like, nice weather we're having, eh? Nobody'll see it coming.
New players can get their hands on the epic champion Stag Knight, as well as a special Stag Knight skin designed by JonTron. Just use promo code JTSKIN before October 7th. Don't worry, if you're not new, you can still get it through an in-game event. Plus, if you log in 7 different days between now and October 31st, you'll get your hands on the legendary champion Sun Wukong, Raid's take on the Monkey King from Chinese mythology. If you haven't played Raid yet, use my link in the description or scan my QR code to get crazy bonuses like an epic champion Drake from the Lizardman faction and more useful things. Once you're in and crushing your enemies, come find me under the name Ark Solo, and if you're fast enough, you can join my clan. So just hit my link in the description and I'll see you on the battlefield. Just as I was heading off to battle though, my dream ended and I woke up bright and early on day 2. Started the day with a bit of dried meat for breakfast and then headed off to find some straw for my roof. On my way, I grabbed some planks and a cabbage from this crashed cart. spent a survival skill point so I can gain more experience, and then eventually wandered back into town where I ran into Alwyn again. He thanked me for dealing with Dalebur and gave me some bread, which worked out because I only had a few pieces of the dried meat left. Finally found the straw I was looking for next. Turns out you get it from these reeds on the edge of the water. I filled my pockets full and then made my way back to finish up my house. Along the banks there was another lost shipment. This time there was a bit of flour and some coin. Ooh, shiny. Once I was back, I got to work finishing up on my home. It wasn't long though before my hammer broke. So I chopped down a tree to make another one, and then in no time my house was done. Ta-da! I wanted to check out the inside, but had a little trouble with the door at first. Looks like it already had a few things inside, so I put the storage to good use first and then headed outside to make this rabbit trap. Well, just set it here. Okay. I noticed this new symbol down by my status bars after that. I guess after all that hard work, I was starting to get a bit stinky. So I took a quick dip in the river before heading off to town to tell them I'd built my house. I tried to kill a duck on my way. Oh, darn it. But my aim wasn't very good, and instead I just scared them all away. When I got to town, I tried to tell a few people about my house. They didn't care though, they just wanted me to bring them things. Eventually, I found my way to the tavern where I met the castellan Unigost's wife. She was happy to hear I'd finished my house. She gave me some food and a very long story in return. By the time she finished her story, it was evening, so I ate the bread Alwyn had given me and headed on my way. Maybe the ducks are back. And they were, but I missed again, and that was that. I didn't miss, though, on this eagle I found in my path. Ooh. I'm not sure why I made that sound when I got it, but I left it in so you guys can make fun of it all you want. I roasted the eagle meat on the fire that night and then slept in my bed for the first time. The morning of day 3, I made this wicker basket to store some things in, found a rabbit in my trap, and then decided to hunt some deer. But turns out they were just too tough for my wooden spear. I did finally get myself a duck, though. I also found some bushes full of unripe berries, which is exactly what this lady had asked me for. She gave me a couple apples as thanks, and then I stopped to celebrate my new house with Unigost. He talked for a long time, too, but I eventually escaped. Oh, look, the ducks are back. I know what I'm having for dinner. Sorry, little ducky. I grabbed a drink on the way home and found some mushrooms too, then roasted the meat on the fire before calling it a night. By day 4, I was starting to get the hang of things, got up and checked my rabbit trap, and then headed off to town. I talked to a few of the townspeople who sold things, but didn't buy anything yet.
Whatever you need, I've got it.
Then, when I spoke to Unigost again, he told me I should go talk to his old friend. His name was Sambor, and apparently they had both been big buddies with my uncle. Well, as fun as that sounds, I think I'd really like to start working on my village next. So when I met this stranger at the fire, I invited him to come back to my town. And Unimir became the first of what will eventually be many villagers. But I guess he might need a house, and food, and water, and is that wood? Well, one thing at a time. I headed back home, and there he was, just wandering around my house. When I started building his, I hoped he would help, but he didn't. Several trees, another trip for straw, and a broken hammer later, though, I was finally done. Does 2 houses make it a village? Who knows? It's late and I'm going to bed. The next morning, I put some roasted meat, firewood, and a bit of ale into the chest of the new house. It's not exactly water, but hopefully it'll do for now. Then I got to work chopping down some trees and building a well. Looks like I can assign a villager to work here, but I don't have any buckets yet to put the water in. Oh well. Ooh. At some point, I'd also unlocked this hunting lodge, so I spent the evening building it. Yay, I did it. I've got a job for you, Unimir. Looks like he'll need a knife before he can do anything, though, so I made 4. I put them in the chest inside and then went out to do a little hunting of my own. Yeah, it really didn't go so well. After that, I traveled across the water to this place called Barrowo. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it is what it is. While I was there, I gave this guy some ingredients for a pie, then got a bit flirty with this girl named Batilda. In this game, you play as the main character, Racemir, and having just lost his family, one of his goals is to start his own.
See you soon.
So eventually, I'll have to talk one of these nice ladies into being his wife. I hadn't really noticed it yet, but a couple days ago, the game switched seasons to summer. And look, now all the berries are ripe. The unripe ones will make you a bit sick, but these are good to go. So I put them in the chest for Unimir to eat. After that, I upgraded my health with a survival skill point and then decided to try some more hunting. I was slowly getting better with my spear. 4 out of 5 ain't bad. While I was close to town, I ended up stopping by and inviting another new villager. Welcome to the club, Bogna. She took the long way home, so I headed back to make her a house. Building in this game is grindy, yet satisfying. Now, if only my hammer would stop breaking. I finished the house that evening when I realized that Bogna and Unimir were making pretty good friends. Wonder if I can just assign her to his house. Aw, you guys are gonna be best friends. We all had roasted meat for dinner, and then I made them some firewood before hitting the hay. It turned fall the next day, and I started it out by drying some meat in the hunter's lodge. Then built this workshop I was hoping I could make some better tools in, but turns out I can only make buckets. Well, buckets it is then. I'm making a bucket. So I assigned Bogna to the well, and she started filling them up. I spent the rest of the day chopping down trees and building this giant resource storage. I didn't finish it until the next morning, when I put a few things inside and then headed to town. In order to craft some things, you have to unlock them first with coin, which I really don't have very much of right now. So I decided to see what I could sell in Gostovia. I checked with a couple vendors first, but looks like they both give the same horribly low prices. I sold all of the dried meat I had on me and then headed over to the campfire where I met Ostrobod. I'm not sure what his skills are, but I like his name and I invited him to join the village too. I also invited this lady and then grabbed some coin from this lost shipment before heading across the river to visit Borowo. Grabbed a few of these big parasol mushrooms on the way and sold them to this lady who had some chickens, then chatted with Batilda before heading back home. I picked up some dinner as I went. I've got new friends to feed. I assigned them both a house to share, and then got to work the next day building this new woodshed I'd unlocked. All of the villagers have different skills, making them better at different jobs, so I put Ostrobod in the workshop making more buckets, and the Lady Damroka in the woodshed chopping down trees. They were taking too long though, so I decided to make some planks and then a bucket all on my own. We'd just had one bucket so far, and I'd been taking it from house to house to give everyone water. Not anymore though, everyone has a bucket now. I took a quick bath after that and headed to town. Killed some birds on the way and found some mushrooms too. Those and the feathers from the birds seemed to be pretty profitable.
My wares never disappoint.
I woke up the next morning to find snow all over the ground. Would you look at that? Must be winter now. Everyone else seemed to be dressed warmer, but I still just had the clothes I'd started with, and found myself freezing unless I had my torch out. For some reason, I decided that would be a good day to go do one of my quests. Yep, looks like a great day for traveling. I was practicing my hunting along the way when I finally spotted my first fox. Ooh, I've got a quest for that too. I tossed a spear at it, expecting it to run, but instead it attacked. I only panicked a little bit before I got it together and started stabbing it in the face. Then, when it ran away, I managed to miss with both my spears. I got one of them back and then headed off down the path again, until I saw this come up on my screen. Nope, that fox was enough for me. Definitely gonna need some better weapons before we try that again. After that, I tried my hand at killing crows, found a snowman with a carrot nose, and then, of course, my torch broke. I made a new one before I froze, then made my way back to make everyone dinner and take a bath. After all that, I decided to stay home on day 11, building this herbalist's hut and a new house. Roasted some more meat, because apparently the villagers want to eat every day, and then restocked the hunting lodge with more knives. On day 12, I decided I wanted to go ahead and get a field ready for spring, so I spent most of the day gardening. I also really wanted to unlock food storage, so I just kept making these little plots until I did. I didn't know it yet, but I'd placed them all wrong, but that's a problem for another day. Today, I have more hunting to do. I also talked to Batilda some too, and invited this guy named Herbert to come join our crew. I assigned him to the new house and gave him some food and water, then made my way to bed. I think I'll call it a year. Good night, winter. But now spring is here, and along with that, taxes. Thanks to all the feathers and mushrooms I'd been selling, though, I had plenty of money to pay them. They're based on the number of buildings you have, so the bigger my town gets, the higher my taxes will be. I made my way to town first thing to pay them, invited my 6th villager, Dalebra, then grabbed some takeout from the duck pond on the way back home for lunch. After making sure all my villagers were fed, I unlocked this little fence with my leftover coin, and built one around the edges of my first field. I'm not sure what good it'll do, but it's cute. With quite a bit of day still left, I thought I might try to travel further and do one of the bigger quests. I followed the path carefully past this boar. Then I saw it say something about a lynx. No thanks. I chickened out and turned around. I've really got to get some better weapons. Not wanting to go home a complete failure, I tried my hand at killing a fox again. It went much better this time, and I managed to get 2 of the 3 I needed for the main story quest. I went back to the same spot the next day to try to find another one. Instead, all I found was that boar, which I don't think I'm equipped for. So I took a quick bath and speared this pike before going to see Batilda another time. Made my way home after that and roasted the fish, then made a bucket which I took to town the next morning for this guy. He needed it to milk his cows, and I got some dynasty reputation points for it. I'm actually not sure what they're for yet, but I'll take them anyway. I did figure out that in order to increase my building limit, I have to complete some of the main story quests, so it's back to looking for foxes. I eventually found 2, but lost both my spears trying to kill one. Oh no, no. Then scared it off with my fists long enough to chop down this log to make myself some more. I'm back with more spears now. Back home after that, I roasted some meat on the fire, made some more knives for the hunting lodge, then called it a night. On day 15, we had our first wedding, and this made everyone in the village happier. I was on chapter 5 of the main story quest now, so I headed off to town to get the seeds I need. I talked to Edwin and sold him a few things, then bought myself several seeds, some fertilizer, and this hat. We got our hat now, and a torch. I didn't mean to get the torch out. Looking good. I'll be sure to win over Batilda now. I hunted my way back home. My aim was getting a little better every time. Once I got back, I noticed the quest wanted me to grub up the field first. Whap. But I'd already done that, so I smashed one and did it again. Oop. Added fertilizer next and plowed it, then couldn't figure out how to use the seeds, so I just fertilized the rest. You get some poo, and you get some poo. I decided maybe I needed a second bag to use the seeds. I went all the way to town to buy one from Edwin before realizing when I got back that I could have just switched to them the whole time. Well, that's good to know. I'd put off planting so long that it was summer now and I could only plant cabbage, but that finished chapter 5 of the story quests and raised my building limit to 20, so now I can expand my village. I got right to work chopping down trees to make this food storage. Then, instead of having to put food and water in everyone's houses, they'll just get it out of here. They'd already been taking their own firewood and tools out of the resource storage. But even with just the 3 houses I had so far, keeping food and water in them was about to drive me crazy. I finished it the next morning and put what little food I had inside, then started building this barn. In it, the villagers can separate the grain from things like wheat, or make fertilizer from manure or rot, but I don't have any of those things yet. Added this farm shed too, where I can assign villagers to work in the fields. But first, I'm gonna need more villagers, and that means more houses. I started these 2 that night and continued working on them the next morning, grabbed some berries for breakfast since they were in season, and had the new houses finished by lunch. That made 15 buildings and also finished off Chapter 7 of the main story quest, opening up some new challenges for Chapter 8. Yeah, that bear's gonna take a minute. I took a bath after all that hard work, then headed to town to make some more friends. This time I invited Ingvar, Dobrowoja, and Churro Man. Stopped by to show Batilda my new hat too, then made my way back home in the dark. On day 19, I started working on a smithy. It was there. Right there. Come on. What? Here? Yeah. And figured out a new way to move logs. Once I got it built, I spent a good bit of the rest of the day just looking through everything I could make. All the good stuff took linen thread, which I didn't have yet. I really wanted a stone spear, but I guess I'll just have to settle for this stone hoe. When I checked on my fields, though, it looked like they all needed more fertilizer. My buddy Edwin has me covered, though.
How are you?
I sold him a few things and bought some, then took it back and put it in storage so I can let the villagers do the work for me. I also put one of the new people to work in the herbalist hut. They'll gather mushrooms and flowers for me depending on the season. At this point, I decided having villagers was pretty cool, so I added a new road and another house. More, please. It took a pretty big chunk of the next day to build the new house. It was a bigger one I'd unlocked that can hold a family of 4 instead of 3. The villagers can have kids in this game, so I guess eventually someone's gonna have a baby. When it was done, I went to town and invited Helmut and Ludomira to join us. Guess what? I built you guys a house. I still had a space left in another house, though. I think I'll invite this guy and call him Samo. Better chat with Batilda while I'm here, too. And then I've picked some more mushrooms to sell. I get a whole coin and a half for these big ones. And I'm not sure what I was throwing the spear at here, but they both got away. On day 21, I built this extraction hut. I can assign a villager here to gather clay and rocks and more stuff. I built this kitchen, too, for obvious things. Then this fishing hut, which is also pretty obvious. One catches fish and the other cooks it. I'm sure you can figure it out. On day 22, I made myself a sewing hut. In it, I can finally make the linen thread I need for all the better weapons. I've got to find copper to upgrade my tools, though. Them breaking on the daily is sure getting old. I added another house that day, too, then used all the extra logs I had to make some firewood. With all the new villagers I've got, we were burning through it extra fast, and I have a feeling they won't be very happy if they start freezing to death. I've got another house to fill now, though, so I invited more new villagers the next day anyway. Then built a whole new woodshed just for firewood. Added more fields after that. I was still placing them wrong, but we don't have to talk about that. Then I started adding some insulation to the houses. I'd had the barn workers making it from some clay I gathered back in the spring one night. After spending most of the next morning making tools for my workers, I headed off to town to buy some seeds I need. But first, this rabbit trap I forgot about. I found Edwin and sold him some stuff first, then bought some flax stalk to turn into thread, and flax seed so I could plant my own. I really should have just bought flax and split it at the barn to get them both, but I just didn't know. When I got back, the villagers had made more daub for insulation, so I put that up and then got right to making myself some thread. I wasn't able to make much, but finally, at the end of my second year, I had myself a bow. I used the rest to make this fishing spear and gave it to my villagers. Then spent the rest of the evening practicing with my new bow. This might take some getting used to. The sway was a lot worse than with my spear, and most of the animals had nothing to fear. I did find this crashed cart, though, with some fancy wine and an iron knife. Ooh, very nice. Took a quick bath next before this fox tried to make a fool out of me. Then I headed home to get something to eat. Oops, this is not my house. Excuse me. My village was coming along pretty nicely at the end of year 2. And now, on day 25, it was spring again. But you know what that means. Taxes are back. And boy, have they gone up. And I didn't have near enough coin to pay them this time. So I took that fancy wine I'd found and gave it to Batilda. I really should have sold it, but instead I gave it to her and we're gonna get married. Well, her and Raceimer anyway. Yeah, he's also still really horrible with this bow too. I sold anything extra I had after that, including some not so fancy wine I'd found in that cart too. But it still wasn't enough to pay my taxes. Maybe I can get some more feathers to sell. Now I'm starting to get the hang of the timing on this. Resting between shots helps. When your stamina is low, the sway is way worse. Dropped off the meat at my village. Not only do I owe taxes, but my people are starving too. Planted some flaxseed next with the help of this villager so I could make some more linen thread. And then discovered that Unimir and Bogna had had a baby. Oh, how cute. I finished out my day building this hen house. Now we'll have a baby and chickens, which are also cute. I started building another house on day 26, but it wasn't long and I was out of sticks. So I spent most of the morning gathering a bunch, then finished the house and took a break for lunch. I still had hungry people, though, and needed to pay my taxes, so I spent the rest of the day out hunting. I was doing a bit better with my aim, except for when I was too tired from chasing something to hold the bow steady. I put all the meat in the food storage when I was done, then headed off to town to sell all my feathers and hide to Edwin. You okay there, buddy? Looks like you're in a bit of a predicament. Well, either way, I need to sell some things. I had just enough coin after that to pay my taxes to Unigost, but at least I've got some skill points to spend. And now I want to save up for some chickens. I chatted with Batilda a bit the next morning and then headed out to do some more hunting. My people kept getting hungry, so I wanted to stock up on meat. Plus, I can sell the feathers and fur for more money. I had Edmund to join our village after that and then checked on the price of chickens. Yeah, that might take a minute. I went home and took a bath after that when I spotted this weird thing bobbing in the water. As I got closer, I realized it was just one of my villagers working for the fishing hut. Yeah, get those fish. That evening, I checked out all the villagers hanging about, then went to chill with Batilda. And then, just like that, the next morning, she was pregnant. We're gonna have a baby. But apparently, she's not feeling well, and I'll have to go find an herbalist first. They're a few towns over, though, so I checked in with this wagoneer to see if he could take me. Yeah, no, that's not gonna work. I don't have that much money. Guess we'll be going the old-fashioned way then. Walking. Which worked out because on my way I found a couple wrecked carts, and one of them had this bronze axe. There was some other stuff too, but the axe was a dream come true. Then, I'm not sure why, but I stopped to make a fire. After that, I got back on track, followed these signs, and eventually found my way to Ronica. There, I found the herbalist Tamira and insisted she come with me to help my wife. So I grabbed some flowers she told me to, and then stopped to look at this cute little piggy before running all the way home. Only to find that Batilda was fine. Well, never mind, Miss Herbalist Lady, I guess you can just go home. My people seemed to be doing a bit better about food since my workers had harvested the carrots, but now they were all out of tools to work with, so I spent the rest of my day gathering sticks and making some more. Day 29, I put up some more insulation and planted some cabbage, then added another piece of road and made some more arrows because I've lost a lot more than I'd like to admit. Built one more house that day too. I want more people to work for me. By day 30, I still didn't have enough money for those chickens, so I spent the day trying to make some moolah. First, I hunted some birds for their feathers, but then I realized selling knives was pretty profitable. They only take 5 sticks and 2 stones apiece. Now, give me my coins, please. I used some of the coin I made to buy some more fertilizer, then took the change to buy all the chickens I could. 1, which left me with just enough coin to buy her some animal feed. I invited a couple more villagers that day too, then headed back to check on my new friend. I found her hanging out in the hen house and gave her some food, then wasted the evening away building this little fence around my second garden. That night, the game gave me a decision to make, speech or no speech. So I gave a speech, and I guess it was a good one because it gave my workers a bonus. On day 31, it turned fall again, and I finally figured out how to make fields right. This is much easier. I also noticed the big money mushrooms were back, so I picked some myself and then set the herbalist hut to pick some too. Went to town and made a bunch more knives to sell to this lady, but then she offered me a challenge. Kill 3 deer or boar. Well, I guess it's really about time I do that anyway. So I went back home and used some linen thread my workers had made to make myself a stone spear. Then headed out with it to find some deer. I shot this one first, but wasn't good enough yet with my bow to hit it as it ran away. That seemed to slow it down though and let me catch it with the spear. Sorry, deer. I killed 2 more the same way and then stumbled upon this bronze shovel stuck in the clay. I'll take that, thank you. I grabbed a bit of clay too and then headed back to town to turn in my quest. I didn't get too much for my trouble, just a few more dynasty points and a little bit of coin. The next day, I used some of the coin I'd made to unlock this bigger stick fence and built a little pen around my hen house. Then spent the rest of the day gathering mushrooms and a bunch of feathers to sell. I spent the last day of fall building this level 2 hunter's lodge, then planting a bit of rye before talking to my wife. She was craving some food, but it was late, so I called it a night. Turns out I was out of time though, and she had the baby right then. And I failed the quest. Oops. That's okay though, I named him Racebor, and now she wants me to add some furniture around the village instead. I think I like that quest better anyway. So I added some log stumps and a campfire to the center of town. That seemed to make her pretty happy, and then I went to work on a pigsty. Once I get some pigs around here, then we can use their poop to make our own fertilizer and I won't have to buy it anymore. I added a stick fence for them too, and then some more insulation for the villagers' houses. And when I woke up the next morning, I found all the villagers using the new furniture. Guess I'll have to add some more later so they can all sit down. I was getting tired of having to carry my torch all the time in the winter, so I tried to see what I could make in the sewing hut. No luck finding anything that would keep me warmer, but I did make myself this small pouch that will let me carry more things. The rest of my day was spent working in the field. I planted some cabbage and added fences around the new field. Day 36, I was out gathering sticks when this crazy guy came at me with a knife. I panicked at first and waved my torch at him, then got it together and took his life. There were 2 more with him, though, and I managed to take out one with my bow, but that's when his buddy decided to end me. And then I woke up. I guess it was a bad omen though, because later, when I was hunting foxes in the forest, this wolf attacked me too. It acted like it was running for this tree, and then it came right for me. I somehow managed to shoot it, and it started to run, but all my practice had paid off, and I managed to shoot it before it got away. Well, that was fun. I hunted some easier prey after that, then made some more firewood before ending my year chilling with the villagers. Now it's day 37 and spring is here. But of course, taxes are back too, and for some reason my villagers are starving again. So I guess I'll be spending most of the day hunting. While I was out, I stumbled upon an abandoned campsite. Finders keepers. Then finished off my day building another sitting spot for my villagers. I made some time on day 38 to check in on my farm. The wheat needed harvested, so I made the workers a sickle. Then made a new field too before getting back to hunting so I could pay off my taxes. The next day was more of the same, farming, fishing, and hunting. Day 40, I bought a couple more chickens. Then tried my hand at making some stew in the kitchen. Day 41, Batilda asked me to wash her clothes. After finally figuring out I needed a wash tub to do it, I filled it up with a bucket and gave them a good scrub. Here you go, slightly cleaner clothes. I started work on another house that night and finished it the next morning. Then upgraded my workshop. I wish I had realized you could do it this way sooner. With the hunting lodge, I just built a whole new one. Apparently it was a big day for building, and I built 2 more houses that evening, only for a storm to come through that night and damage some of them. I repaired all the damage the next morning, then made my way to town to invite some more villagers for those new houses. I invited this guy, but turns out I'll need some more dynasty reputation points before I can invite any more. Guess it's back to being a good Samaritan again. I gathered stones and logs for this guy to help him rebuild his house, then delivered some oat grain to the chicken lady. Day 44, I had to buy more fertilizer. I might have had the pigsty, but no pigs to poop in it yet. So I sold a few things and headed off to Rolnica the next day. I looked out when I found this cart on the way with a copper spear and dug through this random pile of leaves to find some feathers. When I got there, I didn't have enough money for 2 full-grown pigs, so I bought some cute little piglets instead. I assigned them both to the pigsty and then ran all the way home to feed them. Aw, they're so cute. I tried to complete another quest that night, hunting for wolves and boar, but before the season ended, I could only manage to get 3 of the 4. And would you look at that, it's already winter again. I've unlocked some better clothes now though, so I made myself these gloves, a new shirt, and this fancy fur caplet. I might be warmer now, but my people will be cold soon. So I got a head start on firewood and added some more insulation to their houses. Told Raceber a story after that for some reputation points. I bet I can invite another villager now. Day 47 was mostly boring things until I built this snowman that night. Day 48, I was tired of boring things and decided to finally go meet my uncle's old friend, Sambor. He did not disappoint, and after having me dig some clay, he sent me back to Unigost to deliver him a knuckle sandwich. I fought this wolf on the way and then debated on whether or not I should actually punch him, but chickened out and decided not. He sent me to do another favor I didn't feel like doing yet, and went home to build these better fires I'd unlocked for my people instead. We had a traveling merchant stop by that night. I paid him a small price for some diplomacy advice. Then it was spring again, and for once I actually had enough money for my taxes. I'd also learned you could put food in these compost bins at the end of the season to turn them to rot, which can then be turned into fertilizer. And even more exciting, I finally figured out how to assign plants to fields. It only took me 4 years. I made a trip to town on day 50 to pay my taxes, helped someone else gather stuff to build a house, then hunted some ducks on my way home. On day 51, I went to do that favor for Unigost. She gave me a few simple but fun riddles. Then, when I got them right, she gave me the scythe. I took it straight to Unigost after that, and now he wants me to go see Sambor again. Well, I'll get to it eventually. For now, I think I'll go home and grab myself a drink. Then it's the end of the season, so I added a new compost bin and filled them both up with all sorts of random things. Hunted a wolf that evening that was getting a little too close to our village. Oops. Hello. Then finished the night by the fire. On day 52, it switched over to summer, and now I've got plenty of rot to turn into fertilizer from the compost bin. I also found the crops were coming along nicely, but the buildings weren't looking so hot. I fixed them all up and then headed to town, where I ended up inviting Roderick to join us, then talked to these three, but I didn't like their answers, so I didn't invite them. Sorry, we're all full right now. It was back home again after that to work on a smithy upgrade I'd unlocked. It allows me to add another worker here, and I think the walls are a little less prone to breaking. Day 53 was an interesting one. Batilda sent me on a quest to talk to this lady, Nicola, and she wants me to get feathers from all the different birds so she can invent a new arrow. I got distracted for a bit by this animal I hadn't seen yet. Sheep. Aww. Then decided I could hunt the birds I needed on the way to Sambor's place. That's when I came upon these guys sitting around a fire. It didn't take me long to realize they were not very friendly. In my panic, I was a horrible shot, so after missing twice, I switched over to my spear. This copper spear I'd found was a lot more effective, and in no time, the first two were down. And that left me and their archer trading arrows while I hid behind this tree. We played peekaboo for a bit until finally I managed to take him out. I took all their stuff too, including this iron crossbow, and some food. Killed my first lynx after that, and then got back to hunting those birds. I managed to kill 2 of the 6 I needed before I made it to Sambor's place. Turns out he also wants me to look for a bird. This time it's an owl though, and I haven't seen any of those in this game. He said the sound was driving him crazy, so I went outside to look around. I could hear it too, but I couldn't find it anywhere in the trees or on the ground. Maybe I'll be able to see better in the morning. I know owls are nocturnal, but I could still hear its hooting the next day. So this time, instead of looking, I listened carefully. As I moved around behind Sambor's house, I could hear it getting a little louder. I thought so. And that's when I spotted this guy creeping around in the bushes. I scared him into telling me who sent him, and then he ran away. Turns out someone was just trying to drive Sambor crazy, so I went back to tell him about his owl. He had a good laugh and then asked me to come back the next day. He wants me to take something back to that guy in return. I think he mentioned something about donkeys too. I'd love to have a donkey. I spent the rest of the evening trying to kill the other birds I needed, but got a little sidetracked when I ran into some more bandits. I panicked and hit one with my axe before running away. Then tried to use a health potion, which clearly did not do what I thought. Oh well, never mind then. After dealing with them, I finished getting the rest of the feathers, but it's getting late. I guess I'll call it a night and deliver them in the morning. Or I would have anyway, if it hadn't teleported me back to my village. I guess it worked out though, because Raceabor's grown up quite a bit.
Hello.
Hello. And my buildings were looking pretty rough again. While I was home, I built myself this donkey shelter I'd unlocked, then made my way back to Sambor. He said the package was warm and ready to go. I really hope it's a pie. Please tell me it's a pie. Well, guess I better get plenty of rest before I deliver it tomorrow. I got on the road bright and early and found a cave on my way. I grabbed a bit of copper, but didn't go in very far. There could be a bear in there. I also stopped off at this town on the way. This lady had a lot of interesting things to sell. For now, I think I'll just get this large pouch to improve my carry weight. Then I got back on my way. Little bunny foo-foo. When I finally made it to Tutki, I was mostly excited about the donkeys. But I eventually found Walrad to make my delivery. He assured me it was definitely not a pie and I should probably just dump it. Then he spoke of my uncle too before sending me on a quest for 1,000 logs. I have made a mistake. I should have told him that was a bad idea. I hesitated for just a moment before realizing it was surely a joke. It would take me nearly all day just to gather 100. I spoke to him about it and I was right, but now he wants me to kill his cow. You're kidding again, right? Nope, he wasn't. But I worked out a deal with his wife and hunted them some food instead. I'm not exactly sure how that's any better, but at least the cow's not dead. He thanked me and told me a little more about my uncle before sending me back to Unigost. Before I left, I bought myself a donkey, and I was so excited about it I spent the extra coin and fast-traveled with the wagoneer. Hello, donkey. I gave him what little animal food we had, then got to work the next morning smelting that copper into bars. I know I need to make some animal feed, but I want this copper hammer first. This new little baby chick reminded me about the animal feed again, though, so I made it next before going to make myself a copper spear. I was planning to make a saddle for Donkey too, but I don't have any tin, so I headed off to go buy one instead. I needed to deliver those feathers to Nicola anyway, so I did that first, only for her to tell me to wait till the next day. Problem with that is the quest expires this season, and since tomorrow it'll be winter, I guess I'm too late. Well, at least I can still buy a saddle for Donkey while I'm here. I got a large saddle bag for him too, so he can carry more things. And this ragdoll toy for Racebor. Since I was up this way, I stopped by the mines too. Everything was a bit heavy, but I'd learned you could walk diagonally and go a bit faster. Yep, this is perfectly normal. Donkey! I made it home late that night, but I woke up in the morning to find our house has a hole in it. I used my new copper hammer to make some repairs. Worked a bit on insulation too before giving Racebor his new toy. Then after that, it was time to saddle up mine. Go, Donkey, go! Oh my god, that's the best thing ever. Traveling should be much easier now. I fenced in his shelter after that and added this new gate I'd unlocked. Then went back to add one for the chickens and pigs too. After that, Racebor wanted a pie, so I rode Donkey into town to get the ingredients. Only to get back home to realize I couldn't even unlock the recipe. Well, so much for that. Guess I'll just have to go buy a pie. Least it's faster to get to town now. I got the pie and then decided it was about time I finally got around to fixing that water skin for Alwyn. It's only been, like 2 years or something? It wasn't too bad a trip with Donkey, and I even found this copper knife and iron axe on my way. Once I made it there, the lady told me she'd need some leather for the repairs, so I headed out to look for some deer. When I ran out of light, I called it a night. Then continued the search the next morning. Found this sneaky wolf first and another iron axe, before finally finding some deer. I still feel a little bad when they make that sound, but not as bad as when I kill the bunnies. I took her the leather and she repaired the water skin, then made a hammer for this guy before heading home again. I was just barely in time to give Racebor his pie. The next day it was spring again and my 6th year. I started it off by taking Alwyn his water skin. Alwyn! Then made Dalebor a knife this time. Dalebor! I got your stuff. Paid my taxes after that. They were getting more expensive every year. But between the feathers from the hen house and the hunters, coin hasn't been near as much of an issue lately. I ended the evening on a quest to kill some wolves. Maybe I'll test out that crossbow finally. Well, that didn't go so well. Maybe I should just stick to my old-fashioned bow. Day 62 was mostly more errands, built some more benches, a water skin for this guy, and a scythe for Alwyn, then turned in last night's wolf quest to this lady, and ran into some bandits after that on Donkey. I didn't want them to kill Donkey, so I ran away first, then came back on foot to deal with them and take all their stuff. My aim was better now, and there were only 2, so I dealt with them pretty easily before calling Donkey back to join me. I spent day 63 trying to sort out what had happened to a rye delivery. On my way, I found more bandits, but like I said, my aim's a lot better now. Then I eventually found this trail of blood leading to this guy named Hugo. Turns out he'd been supposed to deliver the rye, so I gave him a health potion I'd found and reported back to Unigost's wife. I know she's got a name, I just have no idea how to pronounce it. Overnight, some rats got into our storage and ate some of the food. Then I spent day 64 working with Donkey to upgrade our storage building. I woke up to my wife telling me that Racebor had been accused of stealing and she'd broken someone's nose. I'll have to talk to them, but I think I might let that wait till tomorrow. Instead, I built 2 more houses and dealt with this wolf that was too close. Oh, no. Missed a bunch, though. Guess that's what I get for bragging about my aim. I also upgraded both my woodsheds that day, then went the next morning to deal with whoever's nose my wife had broken. I stopped to talk with Alwyn on the way. He says he's done being a farmer and wants me to take him to get a bow. Guess he's going with me now. He followed me on Donkey to Borrowoe to deal with the broken nose situation. He'd accused my son Racebor of stealing, but when I found the scythe he was missing in his own rafters, he changed his tune a bit. I got on the road with Alwyn after that, where we ran into even more bandits. But as I fought them all, Alwyn was absolutely useless. Move out of the way, Alwyn. Stab. You are not helping, Alwyn. He didn't help with these wolves either, but eventually we made it to Giselda and got him his bow. And I'll admit, after all that, I was pretty happy to see him go. It was the end of the season, so instead of riding donkey back, I just slept by the fire, then woke up in my bed back at the village. With a new season came new repairs to my buildings. Then after that, I went to see how Alwyn was doing with his new bow. He asked me to help him build an archery target, and once it was done, asked me to have a go at it. Ooh. I did so good. He seemed impressed, but told me he'd practice and we'd have an archery tournament next season. So I went home and told my villagers about it that night. How's it going? On day 68, I started work on an orchard, added some decorations to the villagers' houses, then headed back to see Sambor again. This time, he told me a really long story and then asked me to bring him some food. I wish I had known I would have just brought it with me. I made a quick run back home on donkey and grabbed it from our food storage and got it back to him just in time for dinner. Hey, crazy. Day 69 was a long one. I invited more villagers, cut down a bunch of trees for this lady, then spent the day mining copper and tin before taking a good bath. Upgraded my barn too and failed another night hunt quest. Ah, boo. Plus, I picked the wrong decision on this thing, and now my villagers are sad. The next day, it was winter, and I went to have that archery tournament with Alwyn. I expected more people, but it was just me and him, and I won. He said we'd do another challenge in the spring. Then I left to make the dangerous journey south to Hornica. I didn't know it was dangerous yet, but then I ran into this moose on my path, followed by these unfriendly-looking bison, and then this very angry wolf. When I finally got there, I looked all around, but couldn't find the one I was looking for, and ended up out on another night hunt quest instead. And this one was the scariest one yet. I got trapped on this bridge surrounded by wolves, but luckily they got stuck, and I managed to pick them off one by one. The rest of my hunt was really successful, and I was so excited about it I woke this lady right out of her sleep to tell her. The next morning, I finally found the one I was looking for. Her name was Kestrel, but she didn't seem to be in any sort of shape to talk. Guess I'll come back later. Before leaving, I bought all the toys I could find, then took them back to give to all the kids in our village. You get a toy, and you get a toy. I spent the rest of my evening farming. Donkey's great and all, but I really want a horse. I checked in on my animals the next morning. The chickens had made more chickens, and the pigs were all grown up now. Then I picked up a bunch of poop so I could get some more farming points. Invited a couple more villagers too that day. They all pretty much take care of themselves now, as long as I keep a good eye on the building settings. If one gets backed up, they all do. On day 73, it was year 7 now, and I spent most of it upgrading my sewing and herbalist hut. Sent Batilda to pay the taxes this time, then continued working in the field so I could finally unlock the horse stables. I managed to level up some, but wasn't there yet, so the next morning I let my kid take a turn.
It's gone. It's just gone. The hole's gone. Okay, I did it. I had to check to make sure everything was whole.
After that, I still hadn't unlocked stables, so I bought some saplings from Edwin, stopped by on my way home to talk to Alwyn about his next archery challenge. This time, he said something about a bear. Hang on a second, maybe I'll come back later. I planted the trees the next morning. Then, with all my fields done, I took a break from farming and spent the rest of the day cooking and sewing. Day 76 started out nice. Racebor wanted some flowers for a girl he liked. Just never mind the fact he's only like 3. It was back to farming after that. It was a new season and everything was ready to harvest. So far, I'd let my villagers do this mostly, but I want those horses. When that was done, I picked up some poo too, and then finally, it was mine. I put down the stable as soon as I unlocked it and got to work building it, and finished off the day by fencing it in. Now off to Hornica to buy a horse. I decided to finally start working on this quest on my way. I had some iron arrows I'd collected from bandits, and used those to take down this moose. I did it! Ran into some wolves with donkey after that. I probably should have just ran, but I didn't realize it was a whole pack. Oh, no. Die. I made it to Hornica late that night and decided to talk to Kestrel first. I gave her a potion of sobriety. Turns out her and my uncle were a thing, and she thinks he was murdered. Well, that got interesting. She sent me to talk to this guy who knows something but's too afraid to talk. So then she sent me to get this guy to protect him. Hello, Waterman. But he says he needs a crossbow. Well, that should be easy enough. I stopped back by Hornica and finally got those horses. I'd saved up my money and bought both a male and female, and hopefully they'll have a horse baby. I slept to the next season again to fast travel home, then went to check on my new horses early that morning. Looks like one of the village kids beat me to it though. Excuse me, you don't go in there. I fed them a bit and then saddled up the stallion, put on some iron horseshoes I'd bought that make it use less stamina, then off we went to town. Sorry, donkey, looks like you're out of the job. I spent most of day 80 helping different people around town. Then on day 81, my resource storage was full, so I built another one. Day 82, I realized my villagers had nothing to do, so I gave them some more fields to plow. The next morning, I realized my horses had already had a baby.
Are you serious?
It's a baby. Added new sitting spots for the new villagers and new fences for the new fields. And then ran into these creepy acting bandits that night. After I took them out, I unlocked a new decoration for my house. Just what I've always wanted, a skull right above my bed. The next day started out a little rough. Then I went out to hunt the wisent. I've heard them called bison or buffalo, but wisent is new to me. Well, whatever you call it, it hurts all the same when it rams you with its horn. But in the end, it was no match for my iron arrow. Guess I'll have to suck it up and finally go deal with that bear soon. The next day, it was a new year again, so I spent the morning harvesting crops, then unlocked this thing called a fold I can keep sheep in for wool. I spent most of day 86 upgrading my kitchen. Yay, I did it. Then, on day 87, I went to get those sheep. I'd sold some of my chickens, so I had plenty of money to buy 3. Then went out to hunt some wolves for a quest when I got this notification. You know what? Maybe I won't go that way. I wasn't ready to fight it yet, but now at least I know where it's at. Don't worry, Mr. Bear. I'll be back. When I got back home that night, Batilda was freaking out and said our son was lost, but I think she's lost her mind. He's right out front.
He's right here.
I went to the quest markers anyway, and then when I talked to her again, she said this guy had brought him home named Nimrod. Well, okay then. So I paid him some coin as thanks and invited him to join our village. Welcome home, Nimrod. Turns out he actually had some pretty good skills, so I spent the next day building him a house and adding a fence for my sheep. I'm not sure what happened on day 89. I forgot to record it, but I think I might have sheared the sheep. On day 90, I started to prepare to go hunt that bear and made myself some poisoned arrows and health potions. Then I finished up the evening with another hunting quest. I'd finally started using this inspector mode, which makes hunting at night a lot easier. I just barely turned in the quest on time. Then on day 91, I finally took on Alwyn's bear challenge. I have to kill one for the main story too, but Alwyn's quest has a time limit. Guess I'd better get on the road then. I headed back to where I'd seen the bear before. I think it was pretty close to this mine in the north. As I approached the mine though, I saw it was closed off and guarded by bandits. With no time to deal with it, I decided to just steer clear for now. So I parked my horse somewhere safe and headed into the woods. It took a bit of searching, but with plenty of time left, I found it. Question is, though, can I kill it? I was more terrified than I'd like to admit, but I went for it anyway. I shot it a few times with the poisoned arrows and put it on the run, but when it turned around to attack me, this hunt got a lot less fun. Thankfully, the game pauses in the menu, so I could stop to take some health potions. Then I finished it off just before it tried to eat me again. Now I've just got to go tell Alwyn. Turns out I'd already done whatever the last 3 story quests were. Well, would you look at that? Now if I can just sort out the rest of this Alwyn quest and Unigost's story. I camped out that night and then got up the next morning to deal with those bandits in the mine. This was the biggest set of them I'd dealt with yet. But once I took them all out, it was also the most loot. Why, thank you guys for gathering all this for me. I went to talk with Alwyn after that, and he seemed pretty disappointed about me beating his bear killing time. So he gave me his bow and seems to think now he'll just go back to being a farmer. I finished the day figuring out how to make bronze with tin and copper. It's the next strongest tools behind iron. On day 93, I took a crossbow back to Waterman. Then almost got eaten by wolves as I made my way back to Kestrel so I could finally figure out what happened to my uncle. And then with his protection guaranteed, this guy finally spilled the beans. Turns out the one who killed my uncle was none other than Unigost himself. I confronted him the next day. He told me it had been for the greater good, and instead of killing him, I decided to banish him from the valley. Just like you can banish your enemies in Raid Shadow Legends, use my link in the description to download it today. I couldn't just leave Alwyn hanging though. After all he'd done, he couldn't just go back to being a farmer. So I headed off to talk to Giselda when I had this close call with a bear. Hello, bear. Hello. We're running. I eventually escaped and made it to Giselda's place and talked her into letting Alwyn join her on her travels. I killed some bandits on my way home and then told Alwyn the good news and gave him back his bow. Now it was almost the end of year number 8 and getting close to the end of this 100 days. I spent the last of it adding a few finishing touches to my village. A new road and a couple houses, a cow shed for some cows, a goose house for some geese, and another fold, but this time for goats. I also added these new market stalls I unlocked that look different depending on what you sell in them.
They're so pretty.
Tried out this new stickier fence and this log palisade that ended up being too much work. I spent the last day mostly just playing around with the game's photo mode. I really enjoyed building my village in this game. If you liked it too, be sure to let me know in the comments what you want me to play next. But until then, maybe you can go check out all the rest.